Hey there, this is your pal Pally, and welcome back to Git Er Raid. Had a rough time wiping to Galacross for a little while? Well, here's a much simpler fight in Iron Juggernaut. It is a 2-tank and probably 2 to 3 heal fight that involves dealing with 2 phases of the boss. Let's take a look at those 2 phases. The Juggernaut starts out in Assault mode, and when he reaches 100 energy, will switch to Siege mode. In Assault mode, the tanks will be taking quite a bit of damage from his flame vents. Big note, this is a frontal cone attack that hurts. Don't stand in front of the boss should go without saying, but of particular note will be the off tank. You'll need to stay away from the front until it's your turn to tank. It seemed like the tanks I was running with were taunting at 3 stacks, which is a 60% armor reduction and a dot of 150k or so. Yeah, it all seems to be hurting the tanks pretty badly. Fortunately, there is some rest in the second phase for the tanks for that. Healers and DPS will have to worry about some other fairly simple mechanics while the boss is in assault mode. The most obvious is the mortar cannon. This draws a huge circle on the ground beneath a raid member, and then a few seconds later, a big-ass mortar lands at that spot. You should probably move out of the giant red targeting circle, although many times it seemed like the radius of the explosion was much more than the actual ground effect. Speaking of ground effects, the other one to worry about is the borer drill. It just simply is some rock spikes shooting up from the ground that seem to follow you. The damage isn't terrible, so you can finish a cast, but you'll want to move soonish. Beyond a simple dot placed on a random raid member for his scatter laser, the biggest part of this phase is the crawler mines. 3 of these little buggers are released periodically and run towards a random raid member. Once there, they burrow down and begin a detonation sequence. They are immune from all damage at all times, and when they explode they do about 300k physical damage to the whole raid. 1 of them going off hurts, 2 probably wipes the raid. So how do you deal with it? Well, if you'll notice when you hover on them, you can mount them. Why on earth would you want to mount a mine? Well, to explode it harmlessly. Well, mostly harmlessly. Whomever jumps on the mine takes way over 700k physical damage and gets shot up into the air to take some additional fall damage. Yeah, what? So who can take a crap ton of physical damage to the face? Oh yeah, your tanks with all their spiffy armor that reduces physical damage. It's the job of the off tank to hop on as many mines as possible and take it for the team. Certainly you probably need to be topped off, and maybe you need a small CD or 2 every now and then, but they come out so often that you'll need to keep up with them. It makes it particularly difficult to get them when they are spread out, so you might want to tell your healers if you're going to miss one. But continue hopping on mines to help out your raid. I'll note, though, that it's possible for a non-tank to take one of these if they have proper CDs. I was able to take a mine with deterrence up, but definitely not without it. It did about 720k when I didn't have deterrence, so it was about 300k with deterrence up. I'd say things that straight up reduce damage will work here, like dispersion and such, but obviously the more armor you have, the easier it will go. Probably utilizing those personal CDs from the raid like that would be a dire measure if you wanted to make sure a mine didn't explode and the tank was otherwise disposed. That just about does it for the assault mode. Now let's take a look at siege mode. First thing is that he'll constantly be pulsing out raid damage on the order of 30k to 40k a second. Second thing is that you have to deal with the mines. Just handle them like assault phase and have the tanks keep hopping on them. What was fun to get was the shock pulse. Shock pulse causes a wave of force that knocks players back significantly. Yeah, you think? You have to make sure you don't put yourself in a bad position to get knocked back that far. Thus we stayed around the entrance here and got knocked into the fences. I'd say that will be the preferred method to dealing with shock pulse, so take it to heart. The other mechanic to deal with in this phase is the combination of tar and the cutter laser. The tar is a basic snare plus damage crap on the ground. Not too bad on its own. However, the cutter laser chases someone random in the raid. Obviously, if it catches them, it's pretty certain the person will die, so you have to kite it. However, if you kite it into a tar puddle, it explodes on the raid, nearly killing everyone. So if you get a little eyes on your head, drop everything and focus on leading the laser safely through the maze of random puddles on the ground. Once the boss's energy winds down to 0, he'll switch back into assault mode and you'll rinse and repeat. If you need to lust to handle healing in the siege mode, save it for that, Otherwise, I'd say it would be best to just pre-pot and pop lust on the pull. You will likely only get 2 siege modes at most. We were 2 healing it here in this footage and just barely got into the second siege mode. Anywho, you've seen the major mechanics of Iron Juggernaut at this point. Pretty simple, you say? Yeah, it really was. Watch your feet, tanks explode mines, and don't explode the tar with a laser, and you'll have this fight licked. Thanks for watching, and please like and or subscribe to the video if you found it helpful, and have a good one.